What's up? Hold on. That's that a bit. What's up, people? I am back for another video. Sorry I haven't done a video in a bit. Today we are going to be reviewing the original Wolfman movie since the new one's going to be coming out, I guess, this coming weekend. And I figured why not talk about the original, and then I think the plan tomorrow will be to review The Howling. And then maybe tonight I'm gonna do the Bloomhouse video. I forgot I was supposed to do that this week. I kind of lost track, but I'll do that tonight probably because I want to go in on Bloomhouse because they released a lot of shit movies last year, so it's gonna be like an extended part of the other video I did. But figure why not right now review the Wolfman. I watched it again on Friday. It's like the first time in, I'll be honest, some years since I've seen it, and it's good. It's good for the time. Obviously, like I've said it, I said in the other video, I prefer when werewolves look like basically just wolves that are humanoid. That's more what I prefer what a werewolf would look like, but I understand it was innovative for the time. They were kind of it was 1941, so they kind of had to work with what they had. So I still think the werewolf effects are great, but overall, at the end of the day I have to you just kind of got to work with what you got. But obviously, yeah, I prefer when werewolves look like actual wolves, that are just humanoid. But still a great film. Larry Talbot, the pretty much the plot is he goes back to his home of Wells to bury his deceased brother and talk to his father he hasn't talked to in a while. Falls in love with a girl named Gwen. Buys a walking stick, but the walking stick affects him, obviously. Also, that night, I think he's attacked by our werewolf. Um, and then, Jenny was killed, and then obviously he slowly turns into a werewolf. Because his mom tells him what happened, and then, yeah, obviously, the rest of the movie, he just kind of turns into a werewolf, and then it's them trying to stop. It's a short movie. It's only an hour movie. It's very short, especially for the time. But the performances are great. And he starts killing people, and that basically he gets killed in the end. But it's a simple little movie. This is gonna be another one of those reviews. It's not gonna be a lot of dissecting because it's very straightforward. Man turns into a werewolf, and the cops ending up having to kill him in the end. And yeah, it's a classic werewolf movie. It's one of my favorite Universal monster movies. It has that old style. Yeah, some of the acting can be a bit hokey, but I like it. I think it's a good film. I like the score, honestly. I love those film. I love old films like the score. Something about it. It just has this nice sound to it. Thought Lon Chaney Jr. did a good job as Larry Talbot, and like I said, it's innovative for the time. Yeah, I prefer when werewolves have more of a wolf design, but I understand they probably couldn't do that in 1941. So they just basically were like, our only thing we can do is, unfortunately, we just got to basically make him a really hairy man. Because that's granted, I don't love when movies do that. Because to me, werewolves are not that. They're not just giant hairy men. The whole point is it's supposed to be a wolf. But I can give this movie a pass because that was probably the only thing, unfortunately, they can do back in 1941. They didn't have like the greatest prosthetics. They probably didn't have a way to make it look more like a wolf humanoid thing. They probably couldn't do that yet. And maybe also the werewolf lore wasn't as like official back in 1941 like it is, like, let's say today. So it's understandable. So like I said, I would prefer if they did look like actual wolves, but I'm okay with what they did. I still think this is a great film. I definitely recommend it. I think it's one of those you should at least see once kind of movies. I think, like, I definitely think you should at least see this once in your life, along with, like, really any of these Universal monster movies. Like, they're fucking great. And people who can't handle black and white films to me are pussies. I don't know why some people just can't um handle black and white movies. I don't get it. Yeah, are black and white movies a bit different? I'll be honest. When I first watched them, I was a little. There were some I've always liked. I've always liked the Universal monster ones, and obviously the OG like Godzilla movie. But there were some I didn't always like. But black and white movie to me, it's cinema. I mean, it's part of history and cinema. You wouldn't have a lot of the movies we have now with a lot of those black and white movies. And I've always said we wouldn't have Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees, or Freddy Krueger if it wasn't for the Universal monsters being successful. You know, or I'll throw Chucky in there. All of like the iconic slashes we got like in the 70s and 80s, we wouldn't have gotten without the Universal monsters being successful. So I gotta always give those movies props for that. So, but overall, I give this movie an 8 out of 10. I think it's a great film. A little hokey at points, but it's great. So, and it's only an hour. So it's not like it's a long movie. It's literally like an hour and like 9, something like that. But basically an hour. And then I think it's like 9 minutes of credits. Or not 9 minutes, but like it's like an hour and like 2 and then like 5 minutes of credits, something like that. Not really long credits, so but it's a good movie, man. So yeah. The plan tonight is not gonna be a review. I want to go in on Bloomhouse. I was supposed to do this video earlier this week, but I kind of forgot about it. So I'm gonna do that tonight, maybe even later today. We'll see, but probably tonight though. And then tomorrow I will be doing The Howling, another werewolf movie classic. Since I'm gonna do The Howling, and then probably Tuesday I'm doing the 2010 Wolfman movie. But anyways, let's get into the Wolfman, the original Wolfman. So the movie, we meet Larry Talbot, who returns to Wells because he has to bury his brother and wants to reconcile with his father. Who I will say, obviously, back in the day, if I'm gonna say one, not weak thing, but is, I guess, little criticism. A lot of the side characters are just there, but that's something I've noticed even in older movies. Not every movie was about character development. Going to the movies was a way to just pass the time back in the day. So I feel like in that aspect, Hollywood didn't take like character building and all that and seriously. I think they just wanted to be like, we're just gonna make a movie to pass the time. So, so I will agree. Like the father, Gwen, yeah, Gwen, the girl you meet later, and then there's another woman, Bella, who's a Romani fortune teller or gypsy fortune teller, whatever you want to call it. Like a lot of the side characters you see in the movie are just kind of there. They're not really character. Well, the dad's like probably the most because he's like the only one that really interacts with Larry along with his mom, because his mom's the one who tells him about the werewolf lore and like lycanthropy and stuff. So Larry, while in Wales, meets this woman Gwen and he wants to take her on a date. He ends up buying a walking stick that has a wolf's head on it. And Gwen tried to tell him it's a werewolf and that a man will turn into a werewolf. Obviously, he doesn't believe it because, makes sense to not believe in werewolves. Then that night, the fortune teller examined Jenny's palm because she notices the pentagram, and that's when. And then you hear Jenny screaming, being attacked by a wolf. I'm assuming it's like the original werewolf kind of deal. Attacks her. He manages to kill it with the stick, but it does bite him, which obviously that's gonna be the thing that turns him later. I will say though, the pacing. I know because I've heard some criticism of black and white films And I will say this more about older film, not even just black and white. I'll be honest, older movies back in the day sometimes did not understand pacing because there will be movies sometimes there'll be just sometimes scenes that are just like long and meandering. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just something I've noticed when you watch older movies. Not the Universal monster movies though. I feel like more when we got into like this maybe like the 50s, the 60s, and 50s, 60s, maybe early 70s. I've really noticed that. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just back in the day, like I said, people saw movies as a way to pass the time. So maybe in that way, they were just like, just film anything just to keep the time going. When in reality, yeah, like they didn't really get. I feel like pacing and that kind of stuff started really getting noticed in film around, I would say mid 70s. I would say Jaws. It was like around when Jaws came out. And then obviously Star Wars and Superman, the original Halloween, like yeah, once we got into the mid to late 70s. Because even I would even say past Texas Chainsaw, the first one. Because I'll be honest, I even think the first Texas Chainsaw has some scenes like there is just meandering. So I feel like it was really once Jaws came out is when I think directors and a lot of people were like, okay, we got to start paying attention to time and pacing and character work and stuff like that. But here it's fine. It's simple. It's a simple story. Man turns into a werewolf. It doesn't need to be more complicated than that. I mean, I'm okay with it. And it's only an hour movie. I'm gonna keep reiterating. So he gets bitten and Bella's mother tells Larry that basically he is a werewolf and the only thing that could kill a werewolf is silver. Um and Maleva, who's another character you see earlier, gives him this charm to try to stop the transformation. Doesn't end up working, obviously. But I'm just gonna kind of jump ahead. I'm gonna be honest. This video is gonna probably be short, just because it's not a long movie, and like I said, there's not really a lot of care. Like he wants to reconcile with his father, John Talbot, who I'll be honest, him and his father look nothing alike. I get it. It's acting. You gotta. It's one of those things you just kind of gotta look past. But, but at least later on, I will say they did try to in movies. People who have a father or mother, they try to make them somewhat look alike, or you can make it plausible. I can believe that's their kid. Whereas Claude Rains and Lon Chaney look nothing alike, like nothing alike. It's something my friend Mara pointed it out to me, and I'll be honest, I wasn't thinking about this when I was watching it, but now like when she pointed that out, I'm like, oh my god, they did not look alike at all. It's like at all, man. But but yeah, it's still a good film. I definitely think it's not. I wouldn't say it's the best Universal monster movies. Probably would say it was one of my favorites for a while, but then eventually, obviously, became Bela Lugosi's Dracula. I think that film, because there's actually good character work in it. Bela Lugosi as Dracula to me is the definitive Dracula, though Gary Oldman is great too. So Larry that night ends up transforming into a werewolf, and like I said, it was good for the time. Yeah, he really wasn't a werewolf. If we're gonna be real, looks wise, he was just a hairy guy. Because even the other problem, when you shift into a werewolf, werewolves are supposed to be big, so generally you're supposed to be a giant. Like that's why. And I get it though. It was 1941. They probably couldn't do anything crazy with the transformation. They probably couldn't find a way to make him taller. Because let's be real, when Larry transformed, he was pretty much the same size. But I will say, it is still an iconic look. Like when you see that Wolfman design, it is iconic. I'm not gonna say it's bad. I just can't. It's not fair. Because I'd be judging it with modern sensibilities when the reality is I do think with these kind of movies, you gotta judge things from when they came out. Because I'm gonna be honest, for the time, this was innovative. I mean, like I said, I'm gonna reiterate. I do, in my mind, a werewolf is a wolf that is just humanoid. So when they transform, they're supposed to just basically be a werewolf. And I also don't love when they're crouching either. Sometimes I'm okay, but I prefer when they stand on their hind legs. That's the whole point. But, and also you're supposed to be way bigger. But For the time, they probably couldn't afford or find a way to make him bigger. And also, the only way they felt like they could get away with it is just make him a hairy dude, give him some teeth. It's fine. You still hear the howling. And I'm gonna be honest. I know another thing I hear some people who don't like black and white movies. Oh, there's the cinematography isn't that great. When that's not what this movie is supposed to be about. But I'm gonna be honest. I'm the opposite. I think black and white movies. There's a certain ambiance, and like uh feel to them that I love, especially when it's horror, black and white. It's this eerie feel to it because it's black and white. So I feel like it's almost like because it's devoid of color, it's even more eerie. So like the scenes when he's just in the woods, you hear the howling and they're just walking through the woods because there's hunters coming to hunt him down or hunt the wolf that killed Jenny down. And Larry gets caught in one of the traps after killing one of the villagers. And the kill's decent for the time. Obviously, like I said, it's not going to be the craziest kill ever made because it was 1941. But it was alright. So he gets caught in one of the traps, tries to escape. He manages to escape. Um, so he manages to run into Maleva, who gives him like a spell that basically temporarily turns him back to human. And that's when he runs, so the hunting party, he's able to hide from them. This is when I think he runs into Gwen and tells her basically what it is. He tries to, he basically decides he's gonna leave town, obviously, because, it's like when you're a werewolf, you want to leave town and try to be away from people. That's the one aspect I've always felt like was interesting about werewolves. And that's why it's frustrating when we can't get a decent one now, is because it's such a simple concept. Man turns into animal one night a year. And it's not like with vampires, right? Not all the time, but vampires generally usually are just straight up evil. A lot of the time. Whereas I'm not saying there aren't evil werewolves. Like, because there would be case if you're already an evil person, you're just a werewolf. Obviously, it's just going to amplify that. But you could be a good person and be a werewolf because, well, especially if like, you want to get away. I mean, Buffy did it where Oz knew once he got too dangerous. It's like, I got to get away, man. I don't want to end up hurting people and eating people because it's like once a year or a couple times a year there's a full moon. So it's such a great concept that it's just they drop the fucking ball now. I don't get it. It's because it's like, how in 1941 did they understand this, but we can't get this in 2020? I'll say 24 when that shitty werewolves movie came out, and we'll see in 2025 because I don't know. I'm not feeling it. It could just be bad trailers because I'll say it. I'll throw this in there. Small 2 had had a bad trailer and the movie was great. So I'm not saying it's gonna be bad, but we'll see. But Larry tries to tell his father about his ailment, about being a werewolf. Obviously, his father thinks he's just crazy. He runs off, and the moon ends up rising. Larry transforms again. Breaks free of his restraints, tries to attack Gwen, and then unfortunately, John has no choice but to kill his son by killing him with the same stick that was walking stick from earlier on the other one, and and basically Maleva uses a spell, which then shows that his dead son, and it's big, and it's kind of tragic. And then I think John's holding Gwen in the end. So, but it's a tragic story, man. It's a night, but it's simple. That's the one thing I like about it is the simplicity. And y'all know me. I love my simplicity in movies. It's when the plot's not uber crazy, it's just a very simple plot. That's what this movie is. Very straightforward. Man turns into a werewolf, has to deal with it. I definitely recommend it. Especially if you love werewolves, this is iconic. Like, this is the one that started it all. We wouldn't have gotten a lot of the werewolf movies like American Werewolf in London, The Howling, Dog Soldiers, even the werewolves in the Underworld movies. We wouldn't have gotten any of that if it wasn't for this one doing well. And, I'm gonna keep saying it. The design is iconic. Like, even if it's not my favorite werewolf design, it is iconic, especially with cinema history. Like, when you look up werewolves in movies, it's gonna be one of the first pictures is gonna be the werewolf in this movie. And I'm gonna be honest, one of the things I'll give a really big positive of the 2010 one is I thought the 2010 one was a nice. I know a lot of people don't like it. There's parts I don't like, but I do like that it maintained. It was almost a modernized design of the design in this film. I thought they did a good job of making that, upgrading that design somewhat, but still making it look similar to this one, but just in 2010. So, but yeah, like I said, this isn't my main werewolf design. I prefer when they actually look like wolves that are human, but they're just humanoid. But I'm okay. This design's iconic. Like, it's part of cinema history, man, and we wouldn't have gotten a lot of the werewolf films we've gotten if it wasn't for this film doing well, especially being part of the iconic Universal monster movies. Um, I thought Lon Chaney Jr. did a pretty good job. A lot of the other characters, like I said, are just more side characters, but it's fine. And yeah, 8 out of 10 movie. I definitely would watch it again. This is one perfect to watch on Halloween. And yeah, but that's all I can really say about that. Tonight I will be going in on Bloomhouse. Bloomhouse is such a disappointing one for me, man, because they could be such a. Imagine if Bloomhouse is doing what A24 is actually doing right now. A24 is doing like very unique movies. Not all of them are bangers, but they actually try something unique with each of their movies, and they're not just, oh, we can make a bunch of low budget movies and not actually try. And that's what I feel like where Bloomhouse is now. Like, it just seems like they want to just phone it in. As long as it's low budget, we don't actually have to give a fuck about the plot and just shit it out. And that's what we got. I mean, I didn't see it, but there was 3 shit Bloomhouse movies last year. Granted, I only saw 2 of them. I didn't see that Afraid movie, I think is what it's called, where it's about killer AI. I didn't see that one. I might watch it. I've heard how bad it is, so maybe I'll watch it. I don't know. But definitely I've seen Night Swim and Imaginary. Both really fucking shit. It's just. But the thing is, and it's always like this weird thing. A lot of the time, though, some of these have a good concept and they just fucking don't do anything with it because it's like they'd rather just phone it in and not. And as long as it's cheap as fuck and we don't have to actually care. So I'll be talking about that tonight, and then tomorrow another werewolf movie. Actually, one of my favorite werewolf movies, The Howling, which came out the same year as American Werewolf in London. But The Howling is another great one. So I'll be doing that because I don't think I've reviewed that one. I'll look and see if I have. I don't remember doing it, but we'll see. But anyways, guys, but yeah, I'll be talking about Bloomhouse tonight. Subscribe to Pin Down Podcast. We just did a stream last night. Tomorrow we will be doing our Raw review, our post Raw review on there live. So we'll be live talking about Raw after it goes off. So other than that, guys, I will be talking to y'all later. Peace.